This time bringing you a look at Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, an action RPG meets JRPG that launched a few days ago from the time of this video, though right here at the beginning if I sound a little weird it is because I am under the weather a bit, but nonetheless people had been asking me about this release so I decided to take a look at it for myself, even if it's not a title I plan on reviewing. Now, at first, I didn't quite know what to make of this particular title, and I had to do some digging to really understand what it was and where it was coming from, and that is because Fantasy Relink here is actually a sequel of sorts to a game that came out in 2013 that was designed for mobile games and a web browser, whereas here we have a proper sort of premium release, so to speak, for PC. Overall, though, this game has a big emphasis on its action combat that you'll participate in via missions, and these can even be assisted with up to 4-player co-op, so you don't have to go it alone. Now, story-wise though, we follow a group of skyfarers as they make their way across a skybound kingdom, searching for a lost island said to grant wishes. In doing so, we come into contact with all sorts of fantastical beasts known as primal beasts, and a mysterious church of Avia who is causing problems in the region that you would naturally like to get involved with and solve. Otherwise, we wouldn't have much of a game. Now, it's my understanding that this only actually runs about 20 or so hours, but that the bulk of the mechanics and the combat and things come into play afterwards. So the story, in theory, should be pretty short and sweet, with combat and missions taking up the bulk of it. Outside of main story missions, we'll be running around a town hub area that serves as our place to upgrade our weapons and characters, and pick up side quests and missions. Most of these missions are standalone endeavors that you'll depart to, go tackle, usually fight some enemies, a boss, etc., get some loot, come back, which rewards you with various supplies that you can then use to upgrade your weapon, which can be done via the blacksmith. This comes down to upgrading the level of your weapon, and a little later on you can break the level cap of it, initially, which is fairly low, to continue upgrading it farther, though all of this of course requires materials. Later on you can even add sigils with all sorts of effects that change up how that weapon works. There's also, of course, multiple weapons, but as you fight enemies and participate in other activities, you'll be gaining mastery points. These can be spent on various mastery skill trees for each individual character that you'll come across. That mostly increases their combat effectiveness in one way or another, though this pool of mastery points does seem to be split between all of your characters. And while party-wise you'll start with the cast from the original title, from what I understand, you'll start to earn unlocks for other people that can join your crew, which come with their own backstories and move sets that make them a unique character to play. Each character has an associated type, that is to say an elemental type like fire, water, etc., as does every enemy, meaning that certain characters are better suited to fight certain types of enemies, which brings us to the combat section a bit. So combat for the most part is a standard hack and slash, but it gets a little more interesting when you start dealing with multiple enemies requiring you to block, dodge, or activate your abilities. And while that might seem simple enough, just the simple addition of the art system allows you to play around with this a little bit. So as you attack enemies, build up combos, you can increase the power of any subsequent skill you use, which means timing those skills, which can include things like healing, etc., for exactly when you want to use them for maximum effectiveness, does have a little bit of wiggle room. As your characters attack enemies in combat, you can build up link attacks, that is to say, attacking an enemy simultaneously with your companions, and doing this enough can lead to a slow time effect that gives you an extra edge in combat as enemies are slowed down. And just attacking enough in general gets your meter charged up and allows you to do a big special move, and you and your party of 4 doing all of that at the same time, in quick succession at least, opens up further opportunities to attack enemies even more. Now, where it gets mostly interesting though is, I would say, the big boss battles. As you deal damage to a boss initially, it will fill up its mode gauge. When it's full, it goes into overdrive mode, where it deals more damage and is generally more aggressive. But once you take out that gauge, it goes into break mode, where it starts taking additional damage, which is where you can really deal out your best combos before starting that cycle over again. And to mix it up a little bit farther, they also have a bloodthirst mode, which sees them doing their biggest attacks generally. And overall, I would say combat has been a fair bit of fun, if a little bit simple here in the beginning. There's a few different difficulties you can choose from, though it's my understanding that in the post-game more and more will unlock, allowing you to take on bigger and bigger challenges, so I'm curious how much the combat would keep up with a maxed out, min-maxed character, as I believe that is a big part of the end game here. Overall though, I'd say that's probably the biggest stuff to know jumping into this title, but what struck me the most really right away was the very striking art style that goes into basically everything, creatures included, which certainly draws the eye. Overall though, having spent a little time with it myself, it seems like a very solid action RPG with a decent if straightforward story and some fantastical monsters to fight. I will say I've seen some people talking about issues getting the game to run, especially when it comes to co-op though, but I can't really speak much about that as I didn't really have any issues personally. But I'd say the game seems to succeed at the thing it's trying to do, which made for a fun few hours on my end at least. Now when it comes to taking a further look at this title, I'm frankly too swamped to do so. So if I do wind up reviewing this one, it will be much later when my schedule is free, but I will certainly think about it as I enjoyed the little bit of time I did spend with it. That is going to do it for today, however, so I certainly hope you enjoyed this look at Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Let me know what you think about the title down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have